Hey, and good Tuesday morning, everybody. Meteorologist Greg Majeski back with you here on the Weather Nerds YouTube channel with the Weather Report here on your August the 19th, 2025. Hope you guys having a great morning. You ready for the day? Well, we got a lot we got to get into today. We have the latest on, of course, our hurricane out in the Atlantic, which is undergoing some changes, fighting a little bit of wind shear and some dry air that has weakened the storm. We'll give you the latest on that. Got some storms in Indiana this morning and some storms back over into Kansas to talk about. And again, we're going to talk about a fake fall. Yeah, it looks like I've been talking about this for a while, that I thought once the hurricane went by, we would get a nice little dump of cool air across the east. It's just a question of how much. And now it looks like it's really locked on to something that'll be pretty decent. We always call it fake fall. We usually get it to, late summer and, because it gives you a false sense that you're going to have fall weather, and it just sticks around briefly and then it kind of warms back up. Now, before we get into this full report, again, if you're coming in after the live broadcast, if you can help a brother out here with the channel, if you like a no-nonsense approach to weather, if you want the facts, if you don't want to be social media hyped to death on every storm, then please consider subscribing to the channel. Hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you're alerted when I do these updates, which we do every morning. And please give me a thumbs up, leave a comment down below. It does help with that almighty YouTube algorithm. I do appreciate you guys checking out the channel. All right, let's go ahead and break it down here, what we got going on here, as we've got our high and low from yesterday. 113 was out in Death Valley. That was our hot spot, which it typically is this time of year. And the cool spot, now this time we're going to Bynum, Montana at 27 degrees. So there you are, your highs and lows across the country. Again, you're kind of looking at your satellite imagery here. Let me get this out of my studio mode here and get this thing going. So here's our Hurricane ERIN down here. You notice that it doesn't look as symmetrical. It got a little bit of dry there on the northern side. It's also undergoing a little bit of wind shear as well. We are seeing some rains up here across, again, like Indiana and Illinois. Had some severe weather that was blowing through here yesterday. Chicago got hit pretty good. And we're seeing a few thunderstorms out here across portions of Kansas and Oklahoma. Pretty dry out here out in the west. Still looking pretty dry and pretty quiet out here for right now. Let's look at that surface map here for this morning. Let's look at the latest surface map, and you can kind of see what's going on with this. Again, we got the rains across the Great Lakes there, as we got this cool trough that's going to dig in. That's what's catching our hurricane here. Going to turn it right back out to sea. We're still going to be looking at some very rough surface. There were numerous water savings yesterday. We haven't gotten to the worst of it yet. I got a bad feeling we're going to have some unfortunate deaths for people getting in the water when we got rip currents, which are going to be very active, and some very high some wave heights there. I'm going to show you the model data on that here in a second, but it's going to be pretty brutal here, pretty much here from anywhere from, I'd say, up near Long Island all the way down here into North Florida. So all these conditions in here are just going to deteriorate here for today as that storm continues to move up to the north. It's moving pretty slow right now, but it'll start accelerating, picking up as we go through the next 24 to 48 hours. All right, let's go talk about what some of this rain is up here. We're going to take a look at this right now, as we've got some rain here coming up near the Fort Wayne, Indiana area, and Kalamazoo getting a little bit wet there as well. And take a live look at the camera up there right now. You kind of idea to see it. It's a little cloudy, a little damp, a little rainy up that way in Kalamazoo. A wet start up there in lower Michigan, but a little bit of lightning in here as well. But these are kind of decaying storms that were really pounding Chicago through the overnight. They had a series of storms that moved on through that area. Now look at your watches and warnings out there. The other part of the story today continues to be the heat. You got all this heat advisories. That purple is your excessive heat advisories, as well as out here in the southwest, hot out here as well. And that means your feel-like temperatures there are knocking above 110 degrees in those locations. We're going to be beating down that heat, though. I promise you, a lot of the country coming in next week is going to see a nice little relief from the heat, except for maybe the extreme southern portions of the United States. It's going to feel pretty nice indeed. All right, so let's get on to the tropics. We'll talk about that first. We've got a parade of systems coming out there right now. Of course, we've got ERIN. We're going to break down that system. We've got this next one here that's developing, and there's been some changes on this one. Looks like this one is favoring also to kind of follow in the path of ERIN, so that is some good news. Although, again, wait till we get something established where we got a true depression, a low pressure system for it to lock onto. So again, this is just forecast trends at this point until we get something established. And then we got another tropical wave here off the coming off the African coast that's showing a 30% chance for development. So we got a couple areas there to watch. It is that time of season, the Cape Verde season, we like to refer to it, as that's where the storms are coming out there. And the Cape Verde Islands, by the way, are sitting those little dots right there. That's them right there. That's why we call them the Cape Verde season right now. All right, let's go get into our hurricane. Let's break this down. Again, here we're moving at northwest at 7 miles per hour. And again, top winds down to 110. So just got updated there, the 8 o'clock advisory. So it's now back down to a category 2. That was forecasted. But it is forecasted to potentially re-strengthen back to a category 3 as it makes that turn up toward the north and northeast eventually. Notice we do have the tropical storm watches here along the Outer Banks here, and they could see tropical storm force winds between 39 and 74 miles per hour. I think that's probably a pretty good bet as the airfield on this thing has expanded and gotten bigger up to like 250, 260 miles across now with that tropical storm force wind. So it might get close enough to cause some problems there. But one thing it's definitely going to cause a lot of problems with is going to be with the wave heights. It's going to be pretty bad out there. And I do want to show you those real quick. Let me get that model data up real quick, and I'll kind of show you how things are going to deteriorate here for today here. Let's start here at 5 o'clock. Okay, there we go. And we'll talk about that real quick. Let's look at that right now. Here we go. Here is your model data here as this thing is going to be coming up here toward the north. And again, it's really going to be driving in the waves here across the north. In fact, I hate to do that. I'm going to do this on the fly. If you don't mind me doing this on the fly, I'm sure you guys don't mind. I'm just going to make a little correction here to the model here. I'm going to shift this down for you real quick, just so you can kind of see more of the Carolina coast. It had shifted on me a little bit, so I apologize for that. And we'll bring this up a little bit more. There we go. And we'll bring this up. I'm going to bring this up a little bit more, just a little bit more. So this is what you call a lot. It's like we call this live TV when I worked in TV, when you're kind of making an adjustment on the fly. But there we go. Kind of get a better look at the coastline there. So again, look at these wave heights all up and down here. Really kind of coming in here. So we're talking about wave heights getting up to, in that orange area, we're talking 12 to 14 feet. That big purple zone out there is 50 feet, by the way. So that thing is really going to rake the Outer Banks there. So we're going to see some serious storm surge. We're going to see, obviously, wave heights very high, especially in the Carolinas. The Outer Banks of Cape Hatteras, you're looking at wave heights getting above 20, possibly 25 feet into that zone there as that goes on by. So again, you got very rough sea conditions, and I just pray that people just stay the heck out of the water. We don't need to have anybody getting in trouble because of those storms. So, all right, let's look at the water vapor imagery here. Again, what I'm seeing with this, we're dealing with a little bit of wind shear. There's a little bit of an upper level wind blowing over the top of this. That's kind of weakened the storm. So the eye, you got to think of the eye of a hurricane kind of like a chimney. So all the air is coming in the middle of that chimney and it's flowing out the top. But what happens if you obscure the chimney? Well, you can't, the smoke's not exactly evacuating the heat as well or efficiently as it would. So that's one problem. And then we've also got a little bit of dry air that's gotten into this thing too. So those between the combinations of the wind shear and a little bit of dry air has weakened the core of the system a little bit, but it is forecast to move into a little more favorable zone. That's why they're forecasting it to re-strengthen as it moves to the northwest. Again, it's really slowed down a little bit now, only moving northwest at 7 miles per hour. So the Pacific side, although it continues to remain quiet and there's nothing imminent as far as development out there for right now. So that's some good news, at least over on the Pacific side of things. Now let's go look at the forecast modeling here. I do want to show you the models here of what's going on with this. This is the European ensemble on here. And the one thing that is changed here, I mean, this is all pretty uniform here. We got this curving on out. But look what it's doing with the system back behind here. You know, the one that's coming in behind here, it is basically taking this thing and basically following the same path. That's where the weakness is. We're not getting it here on the East Coast. Remember yesterday I was kind of showing you it was kind of doing, it was kind of all over the map. Now it seems to be favoring that it's going to follow in the wake of ERIN and turn away from the U.S. It's still a little bit early, okay? I always tell folks, wait till we get an actual low-level depression or something to form for the models to truly lock on to get a better idea. But again, we'll see if this is a forecast trend. For tomorrow, we'll come back, we'll check it. We'll see if it's going to make that turn again as well. Somebody was asking me, they're going to the Bahamas here this weekend. I said, well, it's looking better right now, but you know, no, it's looking better. And then we're not, and then that other development out here, not really showing a whole lot with that one coming off right now. So we'll see how that progresses as we go deeper into the month of August. Again, the peak of the hurricane season is September the 10th. So we still got a lot of season still ahead of us for some active weather to go on. All right, let's go take a look at our look at where we're going to expect some thunderstorms again. We had some pretty hefty storms there across the Chicagoland area, like we said earlier, and it looks like we're going to be seeing things a little bit better out there for today. So your day one outlook here looks like a marginal risk from Ohio, Indiana, stretching back into Oklahoma. So some individual severe thunderstorms in here, strong gusty winds, lightning maybe some small hail in there, not bad. Montana, also looking at that up there into Idaho. So that's your day one outlook here. A big general thunderstorm threat for a lot of the country, but again, not everybody's going to see that. That's just your popcorn variety storms. Here's your day two. Again, seeing that front moving off toward the east there. You notice it's kind of quiet here in the Midwest, although we got a little bit of a marginal there across the areas of the Dakotas, North Dakota, as we got that front moving off toward the east. And your day three, how about that's looking? General thunderstorm threat across the southeast, and another disturbance here riding across the high plains going into your Thursday. So we're talking Grand Forks down toward almost to Sioux Falls, no, almost down in there, but right up in that area. That's typical for this time of year. That's where the main storm track remains up along the northern tier. All right, let's look at the flooding risk. We always, again, this year has been especially up for the flooding risk here, and looks like we got a little bit of a bullseye there across North Georgia for today. So I know I got a lot of viewers in North Georgia. That's my backyard. This just got updated this morning. So Dahlonega up to Gainesville, up to Franklin, looking at some heavy rain risk here. A little upper level disturbance was sliding down there. We could get some heavy rains into that zone. But everybody else generally looking at a marginal again from New York State, stretching all the way back to New Mexico, right to the middle of the country. Maybe some pockets of some heavy rains and some isolated flooding in those zones. How about going into Wednesday? How's that looking? Again, they're going to stretch that all the way out from Massachusetts all the way back toward Texas along that boundary. Again, that's our frontal system. It's going to catch our hurricane and kind of pull it on out of the way. And then sitting across the southeast once again as that area kind of stalls, and it's going to keep the rain chances up. So by the time, by Atlanta, you guys down there in North Georgia, going in toward Thursday and Friday, end of the week, temperature is going to back off. So you got 90s for a few more days, and then it's going to back off. Monsoon moisture out here in the west continues across Arizona and New Mexico. And actually the forecast trend, I'll show you the climate outlook, is to keep it wet out here in the west and here across Minnesota and the Dakotas as well here. Again, this is for your Thursday going in for this upcoming week. All right, let's go get into the model data, shall we? Let's go ahead and dissect this. That's the best part of the show, right? Doing the model data and kind of breaking things down. So let's take a look at this. Let's look at the models here. We're looking at the NAM 3 kilometer here. It's going to 60 hours out here. Again, the NAM still wants to intensify this thing up to a category 5. And obviously, I don't see that happening, not based off the current look of that storm. It's a little ragged. It is very difficult for systems to kind of get reorganized very quickly when it's been undergone some wind shear and stuff. So I don't anticipate that. I do anticipate re-strengthening because even the NAM and the European are both showing some sort of re-strengthening as it gets into a little bit better environment. So I do expect it to come back up to a category 3, 125, maybe getting up to 130, 135 miles per hour. So 130 is your Cat 3. So 130, 135, I think that looks pretty fair there. But it does stay off the coast, but it does get close enough, even on the NAM here. Let me back that up here. I'm going to pause that real quick and again, kind of back this up here a little bit. It gets very close. You see some of these outer bands here coming in toward the outer banks of North Carolina. That's the tropical storm conditions that are expected there. And then at this configuration, you're going to have a very strong northwesterly wind coming here. So the flooding up along the coastal zones in here are going to be quite significant. They have done evacuations in that zone because of that. Again, we're watching this trough. This is this trough right here. There's your showers up in here with this trough that's picking up the hurricane and moving out. That's the first. We got a couple of cold fronts coming in. One going into Thursday and Friday, and then we got another one going into next week that's going to bring down that real fall air that I think a lot of folks are going to like. So again, kind of looking out here as I get this back playing again here. Again, we've got this little storms there coming out of Montana going into your Thursday. And I'm going to back this up again. But going into Wednesday, there's that frontal system. You see it kind of going into the northeast. So we're talking about Washington State, down in Ohio, getting a little wet there. That's our frontal boundary. Bringing the rains here for your Tuesday morning there across Michigan as this thing begins to move off toward the east. So it moves on off. Most of the country pretty quiet. You'll still have some air mass thunderstorms here across the south, mid-Atlantic, back toward Texas. But the high plains looking quiet behind that system as it moves on by. And we'll see things begin to improve there as that hurricane just gets picked on up and kicks on out of here. And then we got another frontal system we're going to watch that's going to come down after that later in the week. All right, so let's look at your rainfall totals here. Again, scattered storms here. The bullseye on the NAM is actually south of where the bullseye is for that heavy rain threat. Let me stop this right here. Obviously, there's our train. You see the heavy rain there with the hurricane there. Interesting that the NAM is painting that heavy rain down here, and the warning area is up here. So it could be displaced a little bit, but we're looking at heavy rains here across North Georgia. And individually, thunderstorms 1 to 2 inches are not out of the question there. You got some heavy rains coming into areas of New York State with that frontal boundary coming up that way. Michigan getting a little wet, Indiana, Ohio getting wet, back toward West Virginia. And notice most of the west here for the next 60 days is quiet, although we're going to see that moisture start to increase out here in the west as we go long range going beyond. This only goes out till, again, Thursday afternoon. All right, so going to watch that cool down coming. It's definitely the cooler weather coming here across the Great Lakes into the Northeast. That's that initial cool down. That's the first. The one coming next week looks quite significant and maybe underdone, but we're really kind of chipping away. We're still hot here in the middle of the country and the Southeast. You see the purple, though, for today, quite a bit of it. But as we go into Wednesday, watch what happens as we go into Wednesday afternoon. And start chipping that away. And so it's definitely getting felt as we get that cooler air kind of moving on in. Notice by the time we get to Thursday afternoon, we got temperatures here in the 60s. Look at it, 64, 69, 77, 73 in Illinois. So up here, 68 up here in Minnesota, 72 in Missouri. So a nice little, the first of a couple of fall-like air masses here coming down behind our hurricane here over the next week. So here is the European model. Something interesting I want to point out here is as you're watching this, you got the hurricane. Here it is right here going on by. There's that high pressure ridge. The trough sets up in here in its wake, and it kind of sticks around. It doesn't go anywhere. So that means that cool air may stick around here if this model is to verify out. Okay, this goes out about 300 hours. So on this run, so it kind of lingers. So that means that that cool to trend may linger going into maybe going into the last day of the month. So the last week, especially across the Great Lakes, the Northeast, and even the Southeast, could see below normal temperatures kind of sticking around for a little while, not just doing a quick hit and run. So it will warm back up. That's why we call it fake fall, because we're not officially fall until September 22nd. But we are going to have that nice little cool down to deal with there. All right, here we go with the European model here again. As we're watching this troughiness come on in here, I'm going to let this loop all the way through, and then we'll step you through this real quick. All right, let that come on through. So even, again, I want to point out the fact that the European model also is re-strengthening the system. Now this, its initialization at 960 millibars is very close to what it currently is. So the European does have a pretty good lock on the actual representation, where the NAM was a lot stronger. It was down to like 950 or 55 millibars. So this is a little more in line with what the current conditions are, but it does strengthen us back to pressure coming down to 930 millibars. So that'd be definitely a strong Category 3 hurricane if it goes back to that strong again. And then it comes back up 935. It looks like it's about 934, 935 as it's coming by the Outer Banks here. So again, we got this troughiness that's going to come in behind this, and that's going to allow things to cool down here. Again, here these heights start to fall. These are your temperature lines in a way in the upper atmosphere. So this is the trough that's coming on down here behind that hurricane, and that's going to cool things off. So here's your trough. Again, here's your cooler air coming on down in here, and that is going to cool things down. And it's going to look like it's going to stick around here for a little while, for all of next week. So that persistent troughiness is really there all the way down. I still have questions on how far south the real cool air gets across the south, but again, it looks like it's going to look pretty nice here, although you see some rains here across the southeast where that front's going to stall across the south. So again, where does this set up? That's going to be key, because where this sets up here across the southeast is going to be key, because it may be a big difference between what kind of weather you're going to see. So could be some unsettled weather across the southeast going into next week, depending on where that front sets up shop. All right, so here's your hot zones for rain. Like obviously the northeast, we're looking at rains up here. Looking up here with some heavy rains. You got rains across the southeast, even here in the west. The rains here in the west start picking up here. That monsoon really starts to pick up here as we look at a wetter pattern start to return out here for the Four Corners area. Even California showing a little bit of rain out here in Nevada. So a little unusual to see that kind of kicking back in that quickly. All right, so let's talk about the temperatures here. We're going from Thursday and next week again. Here you're looking at your Thursday afternoon. You got the cooler air here in place. So you got the cool air kind of sitting up right through there. You obviously got the heat still in the south, heat here in the plains, hot here in the southwest. So that's going to continue to be hot out there. Let's go take this forward here as we go into your Friday afternoon. Not really all that big of a change. Still 70s across the Great Lakes. Hot here in the southern plains, hot in the southeast, hot in the southwest. So not real big significant change there. Let's go into your Saturday afternoon. I'll start to see a little more cool air up here now. See up here toward the Intermountain region. We've got 70, 67, 73, 71. Still in the 80s here across Missouri. Texas is still hot. The Southwest is still hot. A brief warm up here in the east. Up here, we're seeing a lot of 80s coming back. That's because the next front that's going to come in here going into this upcoming weekend. All right, so look what happens here as we go into, seeing that green showing up on that map there. Look at that. Wow, look at that. Look at all that green. You start seeing green in August, you know you got some cool air. We're talking temperatures here in the 50s. A lot of 50s coming up here. That's that initial invasion coming down to next week, that false fake fall, as we like to call it there. And we really start shrinking the hot air here across Texas, the south. The northeast is cooling down. We got 60s up here. Still a little bit warm there. But we're really shrinking that. We're hot in the west, though. Look at the heat here. We've got the heat returning up here in Washington State. That heat dome's going to shift off toward the west here going into this upcoming weekend. All right, let's go into your Tuesday here. Tuesday afternoon, look how much of the country's in the 70s. Wow, really kind of shrinking that down. You're really bringing that down quite a bit here. So, I mean, look at this. The heat's basically getting shrunk down here. Only in these zones is it staying hot. But a lot of the country is going to see a nice cool down here. And we'll take this out for one more day. We'll take it out the next Tuesday. I like go Tuesday to Tuesday here. Look at Tuesday morning. Look at that. Wow, all those green here, all that cool air here. 49 there in Iowa, 51 in Wisconsin, 56 in Indiana. Getting some 50s even into the mountains of the Appalachians. Nice cool down coming your way here. Upper mid-60s there in North Georgia. That feels pretty good. We'll take that. Definitely seeing a nice cool down here. And then the afternoon highs next Tuesday. Back that up a little bit right there. Wow, just a big cool down here. Really, all that hot air is really shrunk way down here. That's it. That's your hot air right through there. That's it. But look how much of the country here is looking at a nice cool down here going into August the 26th. So needless to say, I bet we're going to see some big changes on that climate outlook, what we were seeing yesterday. If you recall the last couple of days, I was sitting there saying, I think it's going to change. I think it's going to change. And yep, that's a big substantial change to say the least. Look at that big cool dome there in the middle, boy. Nice. That's going to feel really good. So that false fall is settling on in here, folks. It's going to be hot out here in the west, though, as we've seen. That hot dome is going to shift off toward the east. This is going from the 24th to the 28th. So that's lining up with what we're seeing on the European model. And then going out to 8/14, not really changing that much. As we were showing there, it dumps and doesn't look like it changed all that much. So a big part of the country, as we wrap up the month of August going into September 1st, is going to see below normal temperatures, except for the extreme south, down here across the southern tier and across the Pacific Northwest. But even Southern California, look at that. Even they've got a little bit of cool down there as well, going in toward the wrap up the last week of August. Here's your precipitation. As I was hinting at, I was telling you about the monsoon returning out here, and we're definitely seeing a little more rainfall out there. Dry here in the middle, obviously, because of the northwest flow and the cool weather moving on in there. But it is definitely looking a little wet out here in the west as we go in from the 24th through the 28th, and I think that pretty much holds true, going to hold there again going from the 8th to the 14th. So a lot of the country either above or at normal, except for just a little dry spot there right along the Louisiana-Texas coast here as we wrap up the month of August. Get ready to head into September. Hard to believe we're already getting into September. Can you believe it, folks? Just unbelievable. That's what's coming at us for right now. So anyway, let's go back up here to the top here. Let's go look at the big satellite picture here. Again, I appreciate who we got out there this morning. We got Rita. Good morning, Rita. Good to see you out there. Who else we got out there? Got Mystic Monkeys out there this morning. All right. Who else? Anybody else out there wants to chime in on the chat before we say goodbye? I appreciate you guys checking out the channel here today. And again, I will plan on doing a Hurricane Central update. Hopefully I've worked out my bugs late this afternoon at 5. I'll go do the 5 o'clock update. We'll do an update on there. We'll take a look at those cameras along the coast, and we'll see how the coastal conditions are doing here going into late this afternoon. I got a funny feeling they're going to pick up quite a bit. Like I said, there's been evacuations in the Outer Banks of North Carolina. Tropical storm watches are up right now. Tomorrow, probably updated tropical storm warnings come tomorrow. The storm has slowed down, right? That's the big story this morning. It's slowed down and it has weakened, but it is forecast to re-strengthen, and we'll see how strong it potentially gets. Like, I think it gets up to about 130, 135. I think that's pretty reasonable get out there for right now. All right, who else we got? Oh, hey, there's G-Bro. Hey, good to see you, G-Bro. Just so you chimed in there on the chat. That's good. Good to see you out there. Again, I appreciate you guys. I appreciate all you guys checking us out here on our weather update here on your Tuesday. All right, you guys take it easy. Again, I appreciate you help us out. If you've not subscribed, please do so. I'd love to have you on board here as part of our Weather Nerds family. And we'll see you guys this afternoon as I do your Hurricane Central update on ERIN. We'll see what that storm is doing at that time. All right, you guys take it easy. We'll talk to y'all later today. Have a good day. Bye-bye.